I had always prided myself on being a rational and level-headed person. But that night, as I lay alone in my dimly lit bedroom, I couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease crawl down my spine. It was just another ordinary evening, and I had retired to my bed earlier than usual, seeking the comfort of sleep after a long day. The house was silent, and the only source of illumination was the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through my curtains. Rolling over in bed, I accidentally opened my eyes slightly while turning over, and just as quickly, they closed again. In that split second, I could have sworn I saw a man standing at the foot of my bed. My heart pounded in my chest, and my breath caught in my throat. Panic coursed through my veins, and my mind raced with disbelief. I was lying motionless, eyes closed, trying not to let on that I was awake. My ears strained to listen for any sounds of breathing or movement in the room, and the silence in the room became oppressive. I couldn't hear anything. No soft footsteps, no whispered breaths, nothing but the eerie stillness of the night. Fear gnawed at the edges of my sanity as I fought the urge to open my eyes and confront the inexplicable figure that I had glimpsed. I consoled myself with the rational thought that there was no way someone could have gotten into the house without me hearing the window rattle or the creaking of the floorboards. It had to be a trick of the shadows, or a lingering dream that had blurred the line between reality and the imaginary. Despite my trembling nerves, exhaustion began to overtake my fear, and I gradually drifted back into a fitful sleep. The memory of that brief, unsettling moment lingered in my mind, but eventually the comfort of sleep enveloped me. Morning came and I awoke with a start, the memory of the night's events flooding back. I threw off the covers and looked around my room. Everything appeared exactly as it should be. The curtains were drawn shut. The door was securely closed, and the room was bathed in the soft morning light. Relieved, I got out of bed and made my way through the house, feeling a lingering sense of trepidation. As I reached the front door, my heart skipped a beat. The door was wide open, revealing the bright morning outside. Panic washed over me as I realized that someone had been in my house, right there in my bedroom while I slept. I rushed to inspect the house, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anger. Nothing seemed out of place, and I couldn't find any signs of forced entry. It was as if the intruder had simply vanished into thin air, leaving no trace of their presence except for the open front door. I called the police, and they arrived promptly, conducting a thorough search of the premises. They too found no clues, no fingerprints, and no evidence of a break-in. It was as if the intruder had entered and exited my home without leaving a single mark. The officers took my statement, but there was little they could do without any concrete evidence. They assured me that they would increase patrols in the area, and they advised me to be cautious and vigilant. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me. I installed security cameras, double-checked all the locks, and even considered moving to a new place. But despite my efforts, the mystery of that night continued to haunt me. Once upon a time, I lived in a very remote place, with nothing around but desert for 10 kilometers. Our house stood at the end of a long dirt road. A lonely house, no neighbors. No one ever came around there, except specifically to visit us. I always found solace in the vast emptiness surrounding our home, feeling safe in the isolation. One evening, I decided to take a relaxing bath. As I submerged myself in the warm water, I let my thoughts drift away. Suddenly, something caught my eye movement outside the frosted bathroom window. I turned my head and froze. There, in the dim light, was a man, staring at me through the glass. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. In an instant, I leaped out of the water, my heart racing, and hastily grabbed a towel to cover myself. I rushed to the living room, my voice shaky, and told my boyfriend about the man outside the window. Something inside me nagged at my senses, urging me to investigate. We grabbed flashlights and cautiously stepped outside, the cold night air sending a chill down my spine. We circled the house, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. As we approached the backyard, we noticed the tall hedge surrounding our property had been disturbed. Broken twigs and footprints in the sand indicated someone had indeed climbed over the fence. Fear gripped me tightly. How did this stranger find our remote home? And more importantly, how was he planning to leave this desolate place? The night grew darker as we continued our search, our flashlights revealing nothing but the vast expanse of the desert, stretching out before us. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional howl of a distant coyote. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes were following our every move. Days turned into nights, and I couldn't escape the gnawing paranoia that consumed me. I became hyper-aware of every sound, every rustle in the bushes, every gust of wind that brushed against the windows. The man's unsettling gaze haunted my thoughts, leaving me in a constant state of unease. Weeks passed, and the mysterious visitor remained an enigma. The isolation that once brought me comfort now felt suffocating. The vast desert landscape transforming into a prison of my own fear. And so, I continued to live in that lonely house, haunted by the memory of a man who appeared out of nowhere and vanished into the desert night, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread that would forever haunt me. In my early 20s, I was living alone in a quaint two-story apartment nestled in a seemingly safe neighborhood. It was one of those rare nights when the weather was just perfect. The gentle breeze, sweet scent of spring, the allure of the crisp night air beckoned me, so I left my bedroom window slightly ajar before retiring to bed, thinking nothing of it. As I drifted into a peaceful slumber, the tranquility of the night was shattered by an abrupt and eerie disturbance. In the dead of night, I awoke, my senses overwhelmed by an acrid, unfamiliar odor that clawed its way into my consciousness. A creeping dread settled over me as I reached up to switch on the lamp beside my bed. But as my fingers brushed against the cold metal of the lamp switch, they collided with something soft and warm. Panic surged through my veins as I realized that I wasn't alone in my room. My heart raced, and the dread I felt intensified as I comprehended the unthinkable truth. There was a shirtless man sitting at the foot of my bed, mere inches from where I lay. In the dim, flickering light, his face was obscured, shrouded in darkness, but his silhouette was unmistakably human. He was there, smoking a cigarette, the ember of his cigarette casting eerie glows upon his face as he stared at me. I screamed, my voice raw with terror, commanding him to get out of my apartment. The sudden eruption of noise startled him as much as it did me, and with a violent start, he leaped to his feet, abandoning his cigarette. In a disoriented frenzy, the intruder scrambled towards the window from which he had entered my sanctuary. I watched in horror as he wrestled with the stubborn screen, desperately trying to remove it. With one final, desperate tug, he tore it free, and then, with astonishing agility, he flung himself out of the window and disappeared into the obscurity of the night. My heart pounded in my chest as I slammed the window shut, my trembling fingers barely able to lock it. I barricaded the opening with a heavy bookcase. For the rest of that harrowing night, I sat wide-eyed, my senses on high alert, listening for the faintest sound that might indicate the man's return. As dawn's pale light began to infiltrate my apartment, I mustered the courage to venture outside. There, leaning against the side of my building, I discovered the discarded screen, a cruel testament to the nightmare that had unfolded. In the aftermath, I couldn't help but wonder how many times this ordeal had occurred before without my knowledge. How many times an intruder had breached the fragile sanctuary of my bedroom, lurking in the shadows, plotting who knows what malevolent intentions. Since that chilling night, I've never been able to sleep with my window open again, and I steadfastly refuse to live on the ground floor of any building. The memory of that shirtless intruder, his malevolent gaze, and the suffocating terror that enveloped me in the dead of night still haunts my every waking moment. A reminder that safety is often an illusion, even in the most seemingly secure of neighborhoods.